and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and we got a little bit of a bumping around a little bit today. We were initially going to look at a little bit of Abraham Lucas today, and instead we're going to kind of bump everything down the line. So on to tomorrow, we'll be looking at Abraham Lucas, as I do believe that he is a big part of this offensive line this upcoming season, in the hopes that this offensive line can improve his steady presence out there at the right side. But today we've got actually some breaking news that I think does blip a little bit on the Seattle Seahawks radar. And that is that we've had a couple of releases here in the NFL, a couple of surprise releases. First, you've got Jermaine Pratt with the Cincinnati Bengals, very talented linebacker for them, very productive linebacker. He's been released. But then the guy that is actually more interesting on this side of it than anything else is going to be Jaire Alexander, the longtime cornerback here for the Green Bay Packers, has been released today. There was some word that maybe they were going to try to figure out a way to get an extension done with him, or that there was some back and forth between the team and him. I'm sure that the team probably did make an attempt to try to trade him at the draft, as that's what people would be saying. Why did they just move him at the draft? Well, you probably weren't able to get a lot back in return at the draft for what they wanted or anything at that point, or you very well may have walked into it where there just wasn't a team willing to pick up his contract. Because when you do start out first up here with looking at his deal and why this is happening, it is occurring because that deal got up a little bit too high for the amount of games he's been playing year in and year out. You can see that you're just not going to be able to make much of a trade here, where you're still sitting with $16 million of base salary in 2025 for Jaire Alexander. And so this did mean then that the Packers just weren't going to find the partner, going to have to release him, and now he's free to sign with whatever team he wants to go out there and sign with. But he signed a very big major deal in regards to that contract, and the reason is because he's been good essentially from day one with this Green Bay Packer team when he got in the league in 2018 as a first-round pick. And a guy with a little bit of shorter arms for a first-round pick, so his tape was just that good coming out of college, and he's been that good of a player throughout. The questions are not about ability. He can play man, he can play zone. He's been a fairly decent tackler for the most part through his career, though I will say last year it seemed like that did take a little bit of a backward step. So the question then would be asked, I'm sure, by some of you out there of, okay, so he's a little expensive, but if he's been so good and they're willing to reward him with a contract, why is he being released today? And it comes down to a very simple reason, which I think you can see here on the graphic I'm displaying right now, where when you look at 2021, he only plays in 4 games. Comes back then in 2022, has a really good year, plays all 16 games, ends up with 5 interceptions. Looks like, okay, he's back on the path because he was relatively healthy early on through his first 3 years, at least, of his career. And so then you see that we walk into some trouble town here with the next 2 years after that, where he's got 7 games played in 23 and then 7 games played in 2024 this past season, where he was still able to grab a couple of interceptions in that short amount of action. And again, the run defense grade, then you probably take with a little bit of a pinch of salt because of the fact that he didn't play many games. So just kind of a bit of a sample size there. It does stand out with him that he has been that consistent player when he has been out on the football field, as far as his just PFF ranks even last year, and what would be considered kind of a bit of a sub-down year for him, I guess you could say a little bit there. And that he's just below Devin Witherspoon. You can see here on the chart, Witherspoon at 18th overall, Jaire Alexander at 19th as far as his ranking for all cornerbacks. So when he is on the field, he is playing well and still playing very consistently. You look through the years with him. If I can find my chart here, I want to show you guys. You look at him through the years as far as that PFF grade, and I'm not meaning to make this the end-all be-all by any measure, but that you do see here with here that he's not really at any point been bad or down or, not pretty consistent in that level of play and what he's given you. Give me 1 second here, I blow my nose. Weather down here in Southern California has been unrelenting with these allergies. So you've got a guy that's played consistently. He's a guy who's only 28 years old. You can see right there, not super old as far as the age goes. In Mike Macdonald's scheme, you would like to have cornerbacks that can play off coverage, that can play press, that can play man, that can play zone. He provides all of that versatility to be able to do that. When it comes down to the cost, which is essentially where you're going to probably go, this is where we're most concerned about what this deal would entail. He's not going to get the same deal he got before. So he's not signing some $3 million deal with, he's probably at this point with where the contracts are lying at, I would estimate that he's probably looking at like he can try to do a multi-year deal where it's sort of that 2-year bop-a-bop, or he can do the 1-year flyer kind of deal where he makes maybe a little bit more of like a 1-year 9 or something, in that 1 year of a contract like that. The Seattle Seahawks are currently sitting with $31 million of cap space to spend. So they're in a ready-made position to be able to go be aggressive if they want to go for one of these kind of players. We've mentioned many times over, we love using the phrase here, powder dry. John Schneider has kept his powder dry with the belief here that this kind of player, not this exact player, but these kind of players can become available at varying times here during the offseason. And that if you get closed-minded in your approach of thinking that I'm just going to add to the roster in March and in the draft, and then once I get to June, I can't do anything. Once I get into training camp, can't really do anything. You're going to miss out on market opportunities. And John has been one of those general managers, I think, in the NFL who puts his ear to the ground at all times and understands that in those market opportunities, you're going to be able to get a player that's a lot better than you would have gotten, let's say, in free agency. And you're not going to tend to have to give up the kind of draft capital that you'd have to give up if you're making the trade for that guy. So Jaire Alexander, a perfect representation of this. The risk is there. Yes. The injury risk is there. Yes. Okay. Absolutely. But at the same point in time, he's going to cost substantially less than he was costing the Packers last year. And you're not going to have to you're not going to trade a draft capital piece for him. He just comes in and bam, it's just what you're going to end up paying him from a contractual salary standpoint. So that's not too bad on that side of it, especially like a Jalen Ramsey. Some of us are thinking about maybe trying to make a run there. That's a little bit of an older player. Maybe not as much of the injury history that Jaire Alexander's had recently, but you're going to have to give up draft capital to go get him. So this is kind of an interesting, situation from Seattle's standpoint on it. Is this the kind of move you want to make for this kind of guy? The cornerback room right now as well is not really deep. You've got Breek Woolen. Witherspoon's obviously a guy that's set. Now you feel great about him, but he's really more of a slot guy. So when I say weak or thin, it's more of the outside corner position. You've got Woolen who's going into a contract year, and then you do have as well Job who's going into a contract season as well. You've got 2 free agents on deck here as your 2 starting cornerbacks. Maybe that's as well where this could open up a little bit to signing a guy like Alexander to a 2-year deal to where you're getting some insurance then beyond this season and feeling like the cornerbacks room's taken a little bit better care of. I don't have a particularly strong opinion on this one. Certainly cost would be a big factor to it, I guess, to a degree. I just don't think he's going to cost a lot. And I know that there's a lot of people that'll be hesitant because of the injury side of it, saying, well, look, general manager for the Packers today and mentioning the reasons came out right out in front and said, look, he's missed half his games. And there's going to be a bit of a question about not only is the guy healthy, of course, but when we broach into this territory of a guy missing half his game was over a 4-year territory right after he got paid, you do start to wonder a little bit, don't you? You do start to go, okay, is the love of the game there? Is this a guy that's just kind of happy to be there and he's going to do the bare minimum to get by and he's kind of just collecting that check a little bit? Is he kind of sliding into that means of things? That's where you've got to do a bit of the background on him and kind of figure that out from a general manager's standpoint. If it's the case, you obviously say no. But as a general manager, you do want to make sure you're doing your due diligence and not just accepting that must be what is the case here and that maybe there's a little bit more there at play. The Packers don't tend to be an organization that has a lot of extra money lying around. And so if they have a player that they're paying like this, who's 4 years, missed half his games, they've got to be probably a little bit more hard line on their approach with these kind of guys and sort of cutting them away because they just don't have that fluidity to just bury void money years here and void money years there. Even on Jaire Alexander deal, they dip their toe into the void year deal and they put a $2 million of void years at the very far end of his deal. Ooh. Packers playing it risky. Go look. You want to have fun? Go look at the Packers void years they put out on their deals in the next couple of years, and then cross-reference that with the Philadelphia Eagles and take a look at both of those two on over the cap. It's pretty funny, but that's just the way it rolls when you got your team owned by the fans, which is really cool. But it does put them in that predicament. So this isn't purely shot goods, or that a guy that has nothing absolutely left to offer. As I showed even last year, when he was on the field, he was supplying a benefit and help to that Green Bay Packer team. The risk is not going to be something that you can really mitigate around. Even if you do your due diligence and he loves the game and it's just been bad luck and he's going to have the hardest working offseason of his life this offseason, it's still going to be a risk if you do it. But if you're going to take this kind of risk, taking on it on a 1-year flyer or taking it on a 2-year deal that you can get out after 1 year, is not the worst of ways to go. And this guy would significantly improve the cornerback position from where it is. I think he's a better player than what you have in Josh Jobe pretty significantly. So I can go either way on this one. I'd love to hear where you guys are at. I put a poll here into the chat to see where you guys are as far as to take a little bit of your pulse on this one for where you stand on it. I'm kind of interested to see where my fellow 12s are at on this one, and if they are kind of psyched as this being a possibility, or just, man, the injuries are too much, I can't go there, or maybe I'd rather go to Ramsey, or just even there's another possibility here where you just say, look, I'd still like to keep the powder dry into training camp, that these kind of situations can pop up out of anywhere. Nobody expected Jermaine Pratt to get released by this point in time. Nobody expected really Jaire Alexander to be released. You would have said with both those two guys, they'll be traded before they be released. So you don't know what market opportunities come down the line. This is part of what makes this so much fun, because you make the choice now and you kind of remove maybe the ability to make the choice later. But if you got an eye to some things that could happen later, maybe you got even a better player if you can just sit patiently and wait. It's kind of that waiting game as much as anything else. And it's got to be hard to do when you are sitting on as much cap space as the Hawks are right now. I can't remember in any recent history having $31 million in cap space at this time of the year, right before training camp. And you add on to that, of course, you do have the Noah Fant deal there that still remains a bit of a question mark as to whether or not he's going to be the long-term guy here. Or not long-term, but just here for the next year. Or if Seattle will look to save about $8 million by moving off from him and adding that on to what you already have cap space-wise. So you have a lot of cap space. You have a little bit of a need in the quarterback room. You could get this with a couple-year deal if you wanted to just get that cemented in the quarterback room for the next year or two, is if you're anticipating, especially maybe not wanting to sign Woolen to a real big deal if he goes out there and has a good year. I'm not saying you wouldn't want to. This just would give you some flexibility to go a couple different directions from the Seahawks standpoint, as opposed to the predicament that they're kind of facing up ahead here, which is going to be that you have both your cornerbacks, starting cornerbacks on the outside, moving on in free agency. And you might have to go double dip and find two then in the draft or in free agency if you don't look to kind of get that taken care of right now. Unless Nehemiah Pritchett, of course, or Jaire Alexander can develop as those youngsters. We'll see on that side of it. You guys let me know, though. We're going to be running through probably on a pretty quick show today. We'll be bouncing back through this afternoon with a crossover show with Dan Viennes. So that's why we're going to be a little bit short today and a little bit quick, as me and him are going to be chopping it up this afternoon. So you can be on the lookout here. We'll be streaming that to both of our two channels on both of our sides of things. We also got the NFC West Roundtable going on tomorrow, as well as a grouping of other shows lined up for this week. So we'll be looking at Abraham Lucas tomorrow, Jackson Smith and Jigba on Wednesday. And then we've got looking at Kobe Bryant and the breakout players for this season on Thursday and Friday this week. So we got a load of shows lined on up, but I'd like to hear where you guys are at with this Jaire Alexander situation and see if you guys are intrigued, maybe potentially even on board on making this move. Brian says, I'd kick the tires on Jermaine Pratt. I kick the tires, but I think it's going to be hard to talk him into coming here, Brian. You know, he's going to want to, first off, from his standpoint, I think he wanted a contract extension, and he'd asked for a trade from the Bengals because of that. And then, now as he's released here in the free agency, that he's going to want to go get signed by a team that's going to give him significant money. I don't think Seattle's going to be in a position to want to give him money first. And then the second part being is, are you going to take Tyrese Knight off the field for Jermaine Pratt at that point? And maybe Seattle likes the upside of Knight in the long term to be able to be every bit the player that Pratt is, if not a little bit better than Pratt down the road. Don't know their evaluation of that one, but that's where that might get a little bit hard to make that move happen, where Pratt's looking at like, okay, well, so I'm going to take over Tyrese Knight, and then, well, how much money are you going to pay me after you just paid Ernest Jones a pretty sizable chunk of money? Might be hard. Pratt's good, though. Yeah, he's definitely a good player. Brian says, Clowney over Trey for me. Yeah, I would be a Clowney over Trey guy too. Significantly less cost, significantly less multi-year deal that you have to give. A guy that gives you a little bit more, to me, of a complete full game. He's not the pass rusher Hendrickson is. Hendrickson's obviously much more vibrant in that way, but I think Clowney's a better run defender. So there is a little bit of a tit for tat there. And besides, says we got money, we should spend it. I think at some point or another, and I'm going to be advocating for this move when we eventually do a show next week about whether or not the Hawks should take a big swing out there, whether it's this move or a move down the line. And I think that you are smart to potentially top up onto this team, that this team could use another injection if you can do it, especially considering you got the money to do it. And unlike prior years where you would make these kind of deals, Herbicide, where you'd have to sometimes sacrifice future cap space to make it happen today, sacrifice future draft capital to make it happen today. You don't necessarily have to do that in these cases that are coming up. And so I would like to see them try to be a little bit aggressive if the right situation presents itself. It's not just any guy that rolls down the block you jump on, but you do try to utilize a little bit of aggressiveness here, I think, from Schneider's standpoint of things. Allen says Jaire Alexander would make this defense unstoppable, especially since people say Woolen fell off. He'd be a great addition, Allen, and I very much have been intoxicated by the thought process of bringing in another really top-end cornerback. I like the thought of bringing in a difference-making edge, but I'm kind of like almost 50-50 between the two of them. And the reason being is that you can see what you could do for your defense by bringing in that other cornerback. Because Woolen, has some issues at times with locking it in, and the tackling isn't always there. But as far as the cover man goes, and as far as just giving up pure coverage yardage and his numbers on that, he's great. He's really good. And so you can see with Witherspoon out there, with him out there, that there's going to be a tendency from offenses at times to really try to pick on that other cornerback and go at Job. And Job held up relatively well last year. He gave as good as he got, but you could get better. And you go, okay, what happens if we're forcing that quarterback to go over that spot because they don't want to throw over Woolen and test his ball skills, that they can't see any space there with Witherspoon's guy. He's too tight in coverage. So now you're going to go test a guy like Jaire Alexander over on the other side. And now you can see how that really would bring the whole secondary together to really giving you, I think, a real strong argument to having one of the strongest secondaries in all of football at that point. We kind of forget about the fact that we got two basically top 18 graded safeties from last year. Julian Love was like a top 6, top 5 graded safety in the sport last season. Woolen absolutely can lock down in coverage and give you the ability to take the ball away. And then you add a Jaire Alexander that's a similar player to him in ability over there to the other side. And Witherspoon in the slots, kind of good luck throwing Nick and Mawari on top. And that's going to be a long day at the office for the opposition to try to throw the football, especially with Mike Macdonald's just intricate coverages that he's going to want to run. So it would be fun, Alan. It'd be a lot of fun. Jeffrey's not on board, though. Thank you for the $2 donation, Jeffrey. He says he's old and we have no need at cornerback. Well, he's only 28 years old, and he's a relatively young 28. I usually tend to think of cornerbacks at about 31 is when you're looking at them being kind of old to me, Jeffrey, where it is a drop-off to me once you get to 31. Like, that's definitely the spot where you go, okay, that's the expectation here is he's going to lose a step and not the same player. But 28 years old, you still, to me, would have at least a couple of years. And I'd be looking at this deal more of like, look, I'm not trying to have him here at 31 years old, but can I get the 2 years? Can I get him at 28, 29 years old, playing here some strong football, still playing some of the best football he can play as long as the health holds up? I think I can. I do think I can. But that's just my little bit of a mark. He's definitely showing some signs maybe of aging with the injuries there, Jeffrey. And that's kind of the biggest question on this deal is how bad are the injuries? Is there something chronic there? Is it just bad luck? Is it a variety of different injuries? I haven't done the deep dive on the injuries with him, but that's going to be that'd be the main key with it. But I think you'd be looking at just trying to do a 2-year deal. I think you're looking at him like we're going to have him on a 4-year contract and have him in here until he's 31, 32 years old. I don't think that'd be the case. Nor do I think you'd give him a big contract. I don't think anybody's going to be paying him with his injury history any real significant amount of money. He'll get a good little chunk, but not that where he's going to be up there breaking banks or anything like that. Or besides, I'd rather get Ramsey over Jaire. Understandable, man. Ramsey's been a little more healthier than Jaire has in recent years. Slobby One, how you doing? It's good to see you. I do think we have a little need at Jeffrey at cornerback. You got Job, you got Woolen. Even the team has indicated this with kicking the tires on Rasul Douglas and Shaquille Griffin, kind of looking at those two guys that, if you got one of your guys goes down, you're rocking Nehemiah Pritchett and Jaire Alexander out there. That's not going to be good for the team at that point, Jeffrey says he looks like a Jag to me. He's been a pretty good player throughout his career, man. He's been pretty well graded. But Mike Olagreasy Smith says Woolen's going off this year. I can see it, Mike. Your defense is going to be playing as well as ever. You're going to have your pass rush as good as ever. You're bringing all those defensive starters back. He's in a contract year. Yeah, I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities out there to get a lot of interceptions. And, how he goes in has a 5, 6, 7 pick season, and bam, he's solidified himself. He's going to go get that big monster contract out there, whether here or in the open market. And so I would expect we're going to get a highly motivated Woolen this year. And I'd expect him to have, if not the best year of his career, at least replicating what he was able to do in his rookie season. Slowby says, been a minute. I could catch a stream. Good to see you. Well, thanks for jumping in, Slowby1. I know I got a little bit of an odd time here at the 12 o'clocker, and I've been meaning to do some later in the day ones here, streams, and I just haven't gotten around to doing that. We will do those, though, this off season for sure. I'm intrigued by Jaire Alexander, too, Brian, and I still have some hope for Nehemiah Pritchett, so I'm not completely out on those guys. I'd like those guys to be happy surprises rather than us kind of quietly, silently relying on that development to occur. That's where it feels a little bit more of a, not even a coin flip with those guys. Chances are you're not going to get those guys to develop based on where they went, based on what we've seen from them. I'm hopeful, but I'd like to get a little more certainty if we could. Nick says, didn't Alexander say or do something that got him in trouble with the Packers? Or am I tripping? I don't think he did. Trouble for comments. So he had some, that was 2000. So in 2023, he went out for the coin toss, but he wasn't supposed to. He's not a captain, and then nearly botched the call, I guess. So he got suspended a game for doing that. It's kind of weird. Dogzilla says, save the money in case of a solid vet OG guard becomes available. I like it, Dogzilla. Let's go. I'm with that. Riverside going the Raiders preseason game. Let's go, man. That'll be a good one. Alan says, Jaire Alexander won't be on the market too long. Someone's going to give him a contract real soon. I don't expect he will. You're right. And it's not going to be in his best interest to kind of make elongate the process. Teams right now with money are not going to have more money 2, 3, 4 weeks from now. So get the deal done while the getting's going good, and while the money's there available to be paid from. Don't know how much he'll make though. That's going to be kind of the interesting part. Does a team give him like a 3-year, $39 million deal where he'd average like $13 million a season? I don't think he could get that. Maybe. I think it's more of like a 2 or a 1 year kind of deal. HHG, all right, use it. I'm home now. You'll have fun. Number one spot for me to have back with the HHG. Addicted Brandon on point. More depth at cornerback and more nose tackle too, please. I'd take both if we could get it, man. Those are the two little slight weak points on your defense right now. Everywhere else looks strong or really reinforced. That's kind of the one spot where you go, boy, there's a little bit more we could do here if at all possible. I think you're right, Zach. I think that the team is looking to maybe move more of Reed to the nose tackle, and it's really what they should do. It's the natural transition to make. It's the smart move to make here. Reed's got the background in doing it. He's more than functional. He's certainly an improvement over what you have from Hankins when you ask him to do it. Let him slide over there. You give him the contract. You've given Jaire look, you're not going to have a situation where we put you into nose tackle and now you don't put any statistics up and now you're going to be a street free agent and every team's looking at you like, what do you do here? It's like, well, I was a great 3 tech and then I put on the hard hat and I did the dirty work and now I'm being punished for it. So you've given him the contract so to where he doesn't feel punished for making that transition into more of a nose tackle position, but I'd like to see him do it. I think it's the right move for him at this point in time in his career. Besides, did you guys see Emma Warrior was taking reps at defensive end? That's so badass. That's awesome. Mike's using him everywhere. You will see him everywhere. HHG, we get Alexander Woolen's the backup? No, you'd have Josh Jobe as your backup then. So you'd go Woolen one side, and then you'd have Jaire over on the other. Jeffrey, I like my corners with some fire in them. I do too. Meg says, would you want Pratt since he was released, Brandon? I wouldn't. For the two reasons being, I really like Tyrese Knight and his development. And I think that Tyrese Knight has a lot of upside. I don't think he's going to be a star upside player, but can he round into the kind of player that, like a KJ Wright was, where the just good all around game can do everything? I think he can. And so I don't want to take him off the football field in that development that's coming along, number one. And then number two, I just don't think that I think that some of these cliches in recent years have been a bit proven true. And I think that paying two safeties high money at the same point in time is not the smartest approach to take when you talk about allotment of resources. When you also talk about paying two inside linebackers top of the money market at the same time, I don't know if that's the smartest allotment of resources. You saw the Ravens take a little bit of this approach a couple of years ago where after you had moved Queen to weak side linebacker and then you had brought in Roquan Smith as your Mike, they were great, right? That defense, Mike Macdonald, Triple Crown winning defense, but they still let Patrick Queen walk because they were willing to pay Roquan, but they didn't want to pay both the guys at the same time. Do you want to pay an Ernest Jones while you're paying him and then give Pratt a contract that's probably in the similar vein or around the similar vein while you're then forcing Tyrese Knight to have to sit down in addition to that? That to me feels like one where you go, it feels like we can there's better means and ways to improve this defense in other positions. And it doesn't have to be this Jaire Alexander deal, but just other ways to improve the defense rather than just kind of cutting off your nose to spike your face or robbing from Peter to pay Paul, and do you really get significantly upgraded then for the money, that extra money you're paying for Pratt now versus what you were going to get from Tyrese Knight? I think to me, I put that all in the wash and I just go, no, I'd still like to rock with Knight on this. Pratt's a good player though. Jordan says, personally, Alexander has been dipping in play the last 2 years. He has been giving up big plays a lot, which I don't want to risk having if his price is too high. Definitely don't want to overpay for him. Great point there, Jordan. That 3-year 39 that I was talking about, that a team might be out there willing to throw him. I don't want to throw him that kind of deal. That would be way too expensive for some of the reasons that you gave. Maybe not at his best. And you look at for instance, the tackling numbers from his PFF scores from last year, and you go, okay, so maybe the tackling is not as much. And we come back to that question we had at the top of the show, which was
tight ends.
Is the love for the love there still for the game? Or are you just kind of getting through? And one could say, well, maybe those tackling numbers are a little bit of an indicator when your run defense is 57.8 and just kind of falls off a cliff. Has been a pretty consistently graded guy throughout his time. Has been a guy right up in there anywhere between 71 to a 90 grade. He's been somewhere in that vein of things throughout his career coming in 2018, even last year in what would be kind of considered a down year a little bit. Hans Van Wyn, how you doing, man? Good to catch. Thanks for catching the live stream today. Got a couple of folks able to get in here that aren't able to normally. That's kind of cool. HHG, as long as Poff and Murphy doesn't play nose tackle. That's right. Got to keep Byron out of that nose, man. And it sounds like he's playing a lot of 3-tech at minicamp, OGAs, and that's a great indication that that's what they're going to do with him on that, which is cool. How much would Alexander be for cap space? I would reckon to guess. Take a look at. Let me look at Sports Track. I was trying to think about that a little bit before the show, and I couldn't come to it kind of just depends on whether or not it's going to be that multi-year deal or it's just he's got to sit on something short term. And it's kind of hard to quite know how the market's going to react to him at this point. There are teams that have some money that can go out there and spend some money. So it's not that you've got a 4 teams with some cap space and everybody else is sitting with like $3 million in cap space left. So there are teams out there that, can kind of get in on this if he is a little bit of a hot commodity out there. As far as average salary wise goes, Derek Stingley's making $30 million on average. JC Horn's making 25. Jalen Ramsey's making 24. So $18 for Byron Murphy this offseason when he signed his new contract. I think if it's a 1-year short deal, you go like a 220 or a 339 or a 110. It is a little bit hard to quite know what he has available to him right now out there. And with the injury history that's there, Dominic, it's a little tough to know Our team's going to look at that and go, look, you've missed half your games in 4 years. We ain't giving you jack diddly squat. Or do they look at that and say, you've still been a pretty consistent player when you have played, and we'll take the risk and gamble for how good you are. It's worthwhile for us. And you give them the 3-year, $39 million. You got $30 million being the top of the market. Somewhere around the $10 million is kind of little upper crust. And then you have the between those two spots seems to be about in that $18 million a year per range. So it's like you're either at kind of 10, 18, or then we're getting up into more of the 25 territory if we're talking about the tiers for cornerbacks and what they tend to make. So I would guess that he's not getting the 339, but then if he goes the 220 from his standpoint as a player, is he going, man, this is only a 1-year deal here. Do I want more insurance than that? Some of this is hard to say on this because it's just, there's a lot of inner working parts there at play. What are teams willing to offer? Are teams scared away by his injury risk? What does he want as far as security goes? Or does he want to come into a prove it year and he's like, look, all I can make is my $8-9 million this 1-year contract. I'm just going to knuckle down, bust ass this year, go out, have another all-pro season. I'll be 29 years old. I'll sign a new contract after this year for a 4-year deal at $25 million per. Boom. That's where it gets hard to know exactly where the player's coming from as far as their territory on this. So certainly, I think you would say if you can get them on a prove-it deal and have that come down, you would jump on that with 2 feet. If it's a 1-year, $10 million deal, why not? Right? If it's something like that you can pull off, I'd do it all day on that. But hard to say, Dominic, just hard to say for those different factors that come into play on it. David206, what's up, B? Hope you're doing well. I'm having a great off season here, David. We've been rocking, and I appreciate you guys liking the new format. I see some love for the new format on there from Hans. I appreciate that, Hans. It seems to be going over really well, and part of the nice thing of doing these daily shows is like today when we get some breaking news, I can just kind of pop in on 12 o'clock, even if we have a scheduled show, and just kind of riff on what we got going on. Whatever kind of maybe a hot topic going on, especially as we get into kind of the season and as the news starts to break and stuff. I think this is where this show will really have a chance to potentially really shine at that point with being able to cover this stuff. MJ Seahawk, 18 to 22. He's going to make 18 to 22 million, huh? I'm not paying him $18 million a year. You ain't getting that from me, especially on a 3-year contract. If some team's looking to do that, that's kind of funny money to me at that point for him. I think it's very valid to look at that injury history and go, you've played 7 games the last 2 years. I'm not giving you $18 million per year. I mean, what has he missed? 20 for the last 4 years. He's missed 22, 23 games. Something like that. 10, 20, 30, no, more than that. So last 4 years, he's missed like 33, 34 games over the last 4 years. I don't know if he can get that 18, but you might be right, MJ. It's a hard market to tell. And the part that does kind of throw you off when looking at this is the amount of teams that do have cap space right now. Patriots have $60 million in cap space. The Niners have $46 million in cap space. The Lions got $40 million in cap space. The Lions right now, why wouldn't you go make that move if you weren't them? Feels like they kind of need a corner, or they could use a corner. So maybe a team like that gets a little bit more aggressive. Raiders are at $36 million. Eagles are at $32 million. You never know when the Eagles will try to go do something. So while we're sitting on $31 million, there are a lot of teams out there that can jump into this fray, and that might end up pushing up his cost. To your point on that, MJ. Feed me more Seahawks. Thank you for the $2 donation. Feed me. Reek doesn't love the game, and neither does Jaire. Very well may be the case. Very well may be the case. And that we like to think that all these players love the sport. But I think that it's very, very much something that you probably see across a lot of different sports where guys that are talented and able and capable and can do the sport really well don't always have that love. It doesn't necessarily go one together. And don't know with either of those two guys exactly, for sure on that. I think there's elements of the game that they probably love. There's probably elements of the game that they probably don't like as much. But you do want guys that love the game. You do want guys that are all in. You do want guys, I would agree with that, you don't want to be fielding a team of guys that are just going in to clock in and clock out every day, right? That's probably not going to build a championship level squad. Herbicide says, always hurt. That's going to drop the price. I would think so, Herbicide. It makes sense to me, but you never know when it just takes one crazy town team to come in there and do some loopy deal. You go, what's going on? You don't need two corners who don't love football. I feel you there, Phoebe. And thank you for the donut, man. I feel you there. I can't push back against that at all. Dominic, thanks. Anytime, I wish I could be a little bit more accurate on the dollar amount, Dominic. Still kind of getting a feel for that. It is kind of all over the place on this one. He's not getting into the 20 million range, but can he get to 15, 16, 3-year deal? Maybe there's that team that's stupid enough to do that. Where they think we're just one corner away. We'll throw all our money at him. Besides, Chubb's going to the Texans. Going to need that run defense. It's a good move by the Texans. Interesting to see what Chubb's got left in the tank. Only averaged 3.3 yards per carry last year, coming off that catastrophic knee injury. But I like it. It's a good player. Gives him another hammer there. Robbie Red. Thank you for the $1 donation, Robbie Red. Didn't have any note in your donation there, but I thank you, man, for that donation. Very kind of you. I really, really, really do appreciate that. It's good to see you in the chat too, brother. Riverside 12 is tops from you, Jaire. Yeah, that's about as high as I would go as well. I might do a 2-year 24, but I think that's as far as I top from multi-year deal. That's as far as I would top as far as, salary goes. I'm going to give myself an out after the second year. It has to be in those kind of in that alignment, Herbicide. I would agree with you there. I'd be right on that spot. 12 would be my mark exactly too. I can't go to 13, and even 12, I'm starting to get a little, it's making my teeth grind at 12. I'm like, do I really want to go to 12? 10 sounds like the top. Dominic asks, do you think Noah Fant will be traded? I kind of do think Noah Fant's eventually going to be traded. And there's two big main reasons for this. Number one, you save, I think, about $8.5 million of salary by moving off of him. And I just feel like that's such a significant chunk of change from John Schneider's perspective that he's going to be thinking I can do so much more with that money than rolling with Fant into the next year. I do think that they're going to probably want to make sure that they're pretty certain of Arroyo's health and that that's going to hold up. But that brings me to the number 2 point as to why I think it'll happen, Dominic, is because you have inline tight ends and you have H-back tight ends. And then you have H-back tight ends that can do some smattering of inline stuff. I think in the case of Arroyo and in the case of Noah Fant, you have two guys that are H-back types who can do some smattering of inline stuff. A.J. Barner's your true inline guy. And so typically, and I'm leaning more to historical terms on this, teams are not going to carry two H-back types. Teams might carry 3 tight ends, but if they're going to carry 3 tight ends, you typically at like a 95% rate are going to see those teams carrying 2 inline tight ends and then 1 H-back type tight end. It's not going to be 2 H-backs and 1 inline guy. The potential's there for the Hawks to do that here, but I just don't think that that's the way they're going to roll with this. And so I come back around to me, that just comes out as a formula to where you're going to probably move Fant when it's all said and done. The little other extra factor I would throw on top of this, Dominic, would be the fullback position. You are going to have an active fullback. You are going to have a fullback on the roster. What does this mean? You got to pull from somewhere else on the roster. Some other roster spot where you'd have this many guys in prior years, you're going to have one guy less in order to accommodate the fullback on the roster. You typically, historically speaking on that, are going to do that at the tight end position. So you rock 3 tight ends game day, 3 tight ends active. Now you have 2 tight ends active. Now you have the 1 fullback. And so here we come back again to you're going to want to have 1 inline guy active on game day, which is probably going to be Barner, and then 1 H-back guy on the other side of it. So there's a little bit of a logical experiment for me walking down the road on the Fant being traded thing, but that's kind of what all sort of builds into it for me, thinking that this is going to probably happen at some point or another. Alan says we did an $18 million contract to Jamal Adams. Did not work out at all. It's true. Yeah. Not a good one there. That was a weird deal in retrospect, for sure. Robbie Red, go Hawks. Still concerned about his injury history, but if we can grab him for a prove-it deal, I'm all for it. That's what's got to be for me, too. Prove-it deal. I'm not giving you some big contract. I'm not rewarding you for missing half your games the last 4 years. You got to kind of prove it right now. That's where you're at in your career. And you can embrace that or not, but that's the way it's got to be if you're coming here, to me. MJ says, if I was going to pick one of the rumors, it would be Parsons for me. That'd be fun, man. Parsons would be a lot of fun. One thing I would wonder about Parsons to me that's always made me a little reticent on this one to believe it is Jaire. Listen, Jaire rewards his players, okay? Jaire don't trade guys. This is America's team. America's team don't trade its players, okay? Best team in football. Best team in America. Best team in the world. We don't let our guys go here in Cowboy land. You're a Cowboy? You're a Cowboy for life. And what I mean by this, MJ, is if you look at the history of the Cowboys and you look at their in-house homegrown talent, they don't move guys. They're going to reward everybody. They might make them go through the ringer to get them paid, but they are going to reward everybody at some point or another. It'd be cool if Parsons was available. It would. But boy, Jerry just has, can you remember the last trade Jerry made where he moved a guy to get some prime assets back, prime real estate back? I can't. They pay everybody, man. You come up, you're due to be paid, you get paid. So I think that they're going to end up finding a way to get that deal done with Parsons, but you never know. It's probably a fluid situation, and they're probably in the midst of negotiations, and negotiations can certainly go south quick. Dominic, 22.5 for 2 years, the highest I'd go. I like it, Dominic. I'm in the same kind of territory on that. Same territory. Matt Monroe says, I'd rather have him than Jalen Ramsey. He wouldn't be good for the locker room. Ramsey could be a bit of a live wire in there, Matt. Yeah, I think that there's definitely a bit of a concern there. There may be a worry too with Jalen is that Jalen may be having his heart set on getting back to the Rams. You go and you trade for him. Do you get a little bit of an embittered Jalen who's like, I don't want to be in Seattle. I want to be back in LA. And do you get a little bit of that going on? Maybe on that. So I also like with this one too, Matt, that with Jalen, I don't think that the draft capital is going to be a lot, but I think you're going to have to give up something for Jalen, and it might be a third-round pick. Whereas with this, you don't have to give up any draft capital. You just the price that comes out of pocket is all you got to pay. Besides effed up, Herbs, I have no crowns. I'd always like the Rams started seeing them on top. Dick, I've been saying it already, but sorry, saying it again. 2025 will be the season of Barner. Write it down. Hey, I hope you're right, man. He had a great year there as a rookie tight end. Third best, at least the third best rookie season for a tight end in Seahawks history. It's pretty cool. What's up, Stoney? Dominic, thanks for the replies. You're the best. Oh, you're the best, Dominic. I appreciate you, man, anytime. I always love chopping it up with you guys here. Especially a topic like today where there's so many interesting kind of angles on this one a little bit. Stoney says, I don't know this Packer we're talking about, Brandon. He's a former first-round pick. Middle of the first round is where the Packers took him. Can play man, can play zone. He's got a little bit of shorter arms, but he's one of those few guys in the league with shorter arms that's been able to make it work on the outside. So a pure outside corner at that. Injuries are the big concern here, Stoney. He's missed about half of his games over the past 4 years. And so that's going to be the big worry here. But street free agent probably won't cost as much as he would cost if he was, a guy being released in, March 4th. Chris says, B, what about trading Fant for Ramsey and extend Ramsey, possibly have to throw a pick in? Yes, you would definitely have to throw a pick in on that one. I believe that they're sitting on Jonnu Smith right now with the Miami Dolphins, and Jonnu Smith kind of fits into more of that H-back role as it stands with the Dolphins right now. There is rumors that the Dolphins are trying to move Jonnu after having a really good year last year. So, maybe they move him, get something back, then they have a bit of a hole open up for them. So then they make a move for a Fant, and you can include him in to go get a Ramsey, kind of to to your alignment of your thought there. But it would probably, they would have to move for the same reasons, Chris, I was talking about not having two H-backs on our roster. The Dolphins would have to move Jonnu Smith to then bring on Fant onto the team. I don't know if Ramsey's going to necessarily be in line to get a contract extension wherever he goes. I think that he's in a situation right now where he's already pretty well paid. He just did, I think, sign that contract extension with the Dolphins recently. And so part of the draw with Ramsey is that you're getting him on that kind of same thing I was talking about with Jaire, where you're getting him on a 2-year deal that's at a pretty feasible rate, and it's not break the bank expensive. I mean, considering that Ramsey's essentially APY, averaging $24 million per year, third highest amount for any cornerback in the sport. Only Stingley and J.C. Horn are above him. But then you're bringing Ramsey in and getting him off the hook of that bonus money. So you're only on the hook for his base, optional bonus stuff, and that brings down his cost very substantially over the next 2 years. So I don't think that he's going to be able to, Ramsey can parlay this into a contract extension. I don't. I think it's more of Dolphins getting him out of town, him knowing that this ain't going to have a chance to win. I didn't like how you used me last year because Dolphins try to take advantage of his tackling by really rolling him into the slot and putting him in the slot way too often. That's not the best way of using Ramsey. So this is a little bit of how they've used him and his dissatisfaction with that. But yeah, you could maybe find a way to do that package there, Chris. They've got to get ahead of it with the Jonnu Smith thing. Thank you for reminding me, Brian. Please do, if you can, for me, folks. Hit that like button, as it does help this channel grow tremendously and gets me up on the search algorithm with YouTube when you hit that sub and hit that like button. It's a big benefiting factor here to us here at the Hawks Nest. I really do appreciate it as well. But thank you, Brian, for reminding me of that. Stoney, I've been subbed since 2022. Let's go, Stoney. Let's go, bro. MJ Seahawk, thank you for the $10 donation. MJ, I really appreciate it, as well as being a member of the channel. Thank you for that, man. Thanks for doing these shows on my lunch break. Have you seen the top 50 Hawk players here on YouTube? I have been paying attention to the top 50 Seahawk players, and I think that they've done a good job. There haven't been a lot of guys that I've thought, MJ, that didn't deserve to be on there, or I had a ton of issue with. I think they pretty much got, most of it right, I think, for the most part on this. Brian Millard, that's maybe the one that, when I look through these names, the one that kind of stands out to me, or, Keith Butler, Edwin Bailey. I'm not as sure on those. I wouldn't, voraciously argue it, but they did a good job of getting most of the guys on there. I thought they had left Rufus off. They got Rufus Porter on there, so that's good. I can't really think of anybody that they, left off. I think they did a good job. There's, yeah, I'm looking at the list right now. I think they did pretty good. I think they got the guys included that you need to have included. There's a couple in there that you can maybe. It's great to see they got Joe Nash on there too. He gets forgotten about in Seahawks history a lot. They did a good job. Michael Sinclair on there. Yeah. Hard to dispute that list. It's pretty clean. It's pretty clean. John Harris, getting John on there. Man, John's got some fun tape when you go back and watch some of the 80s stuff. Underrated safety. Boy, he's got some good tape. That Dolphins game in 83 with him back there, he was awesome. Just awesome. But thank you, MJ, for the $10 dono. I wish I could give you like a hot take on a guy that was on the list that shouldn't have been, that just, totally grinded my gears. But I think that the team did a great job with this. They didn't get you'd worry a little bit about them waiting a little bit too heavily, MJ, on the new guys, on the recent guys. These lists tend to be recency bias situations. And it does bother me at times that some of the early 80s teams get forgotten about, especially as good as that defense was in the early 80s. That they deserve their props, and those guys like a John Harris, like a Joe Nash, like a Jeff Bryant, These guys were good players for us in the 80s. And just because the team wasn't particularly good didn't mean that they weren't good players and deserved their recognition. So team did a good job on this one, man. I can't, I give Brian Millard a little bit of shade, maybe Keith Butler in there. But with that said, I don't know who I'm going to necessarily replace those guys with. Maybe Julian Peterson. It'd be one of these guys that had like a real great run for like a 3-4 year period rather than having the 10-year run. So Chris Clemens or something like that might be the guy to replace that with. But other than that, everybody was pretty good. They did a good job, MJ. Very good job. We might do a show eventually. We'll react to it, but since I don't have a lot of problem with it, it might just be like just nodding, like, "Hey, good job, team. Well done on the list." Dogzilla, will Brandon tell Dan Viens later today that he's still FOS? Maybe so. Maybe so. What is FS? Free on Street? What is Free on Station? What is FOS? Free on Station? All these terms. MJ says too many special teams players, the top 50 too. I'm glad they left off the kickers, MJ, but John Ryan might be another one you go, does John Ryan really beat out some of these other guys? And I think if a guy had a 4-year run here that was really top notch, for instance, I think you kind of take that into account. You'd like to get the Hall of Fame a 10-year run, but a team that's only 50 years old is maybe not going to have as many of those guys in the reservoir to pick through. So I might have gone a little bit more in that direction too. Little bit. I'm glad they didn't do the kickers. Hauschka, Norm Johnson, solid careers, but no. We don't have to participation trophy it. Like we have to include a special team or just Dixon's the only guy. That probably should be it. Leon Washington. He was a good one here. Yeah. Alan, I'm glad they put Marcus Trufant in the top 50 Seahawks players. He definitely deserves his flowers. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And those kind of guys that played 10 years here and had a couple of Pro Bowls, and you're on the list. You do that, you're on the list. Doesn't matter the position, doesn't matter. There aren't going to be, like I say, many of the deep reservoir of those kind of guys you have on your history books. And so if their guy does check those boxes, you got to give him the nod. Steven says, John Harris era, the numbers were huge on their jerseys. They were big numbers. Yeah, those things dominate up on those. He was such just a fun player. He jumped out. I was watching tape on the Hawks, and when I did my great moments video on the Cinderella Hawks in '83, and he was just jumping off the tape. Guy played, and he played rough. Chad Brown's on the list too, Brian. Yep, Chad made it. He has to. Has to. David says, it'll be fun to see your Seahawks 50 list too. Laughing out loud. I'll put one together. I'll say, David, it's probably not going to be but like 4 or 5 names that are changed off the list that they did. So it's, maybe Ryan, Millard, Butler, usher those guys out. I probably just in favor of that, be looking at kind of guys now, that alignment that would be like Julian Peterson, who had a good couple year run here. I mean, he was, Peterson was the Micah Parsons before Micah Parsons, man. And he actually played linebacker. So you had him here for only 3 seasons, but in that 3 seasons, 10 sacks, 9.5 sacks, 5 sacks, still pulling in a bunch of tackles. Only a 3-year run though. But Chris Clemens, so Clem was here for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, 11 sacks, 11 sacks, 11.5 sacks, 4.5 sacks. So 30, 36, 37 sacks in his career. And Keith Butler played here for 10 years, 9 years. So that's what kind of got him as much as anything, but both of them are linebackers. I think I'd take Julian's impact more than I would take the length of time. With Butler, it's almost like he was just here for a long period of time. So you kind of gave him the nod. And he got in here in 78, right when you kind of started. But it'd only be a couple of those guys that I would parse away from on that one, David. Something like that would be just about my only move. They got the guys on there that I would have thought they might have forgotten about, a guy like Rufus Porter, for instance, and they got him on there. Or a Jeff Bryant, or a Joe Nash. They got him on. They did a good job. Docs is full of S. Was just kidding, of course. Herbicide says Zach Miller, maybe. IMO, best tight end we ever had. Zach could be another one that'd be interesting to look at. Another one where it's like, well, it's how much do you value the impact of being so good for such the short period of time that you had him there. Let's see here. So you had him for 4 seasons. Hella best blocking tight end in Seahawks history. No doubt about that. Got himself about 155-ish receptions, 8 touchdowns receiving over 4 years. So pretty solid. Pretty solid. I might be drawn a little bit on that one too. It's the tough part of the argument you get to when you're talking about the herbicide, the small impact, but at a high impact for a very small period of time versus the guys that are longer out, but there's not as much measurable impact. What weighs out more? The guy that played the extra 5 years at league average play, or the guy that gave you the 4 years of real impact? And that's probably arbitrary and it differs by person on how they'd measure that. Playlist Trav, do an all-time Seahawks roster, Brandon. I'll do that. I think that'd be a great way to do that. Maybe that's the better way to do is rather than the top 50 is we'll do an all-time roster. We'll do that as that'd be some good content for late June. You know what I mean? So great suggestion there, Trav. I've been thinking about how to kind of cover the 50 list, especially when there's a little bit of lack of disagreement on my part with the list. So this would be a way of kind of doing it creatively that way. Great suggestion. I'll try to put something like that together, Trav, for sure. Yeah, some fun off-season content. That'd be a cooler way to go at it too, is this. Then you got to really decide on the starters and who's playing where, so to speak. I like it. Trey Flowers reunion. We got to have a bottom 50. If we got a top 50 on the 50 season, then we have to have a bottom 50 as well, or is that too mean? That could be fun. David says Clemens was a dog, super fun to watch. He really was. And you had nothing there pass rush when he walked in the door. You slowly built it around him, but he was a hell of a player for you. And kind of forgotten about in Hawk history a bit, but I mean, he was just one of those just waves of pass rushers that you could send at the opposition in those LOB days. Stoner says John Carlson would like a word with you about being the greatest Seahawks tight end of all time. Ooh, there we go. It's definitely a hotly contested item on there, partly because there's not a guy that's just separated himself as the tried and true far and away guy. John's probably got as good an argument as anybody to be made on it. That's for sure. I couldn't push back on that part of it where he had the best receiving season for a rookie tight end in Seahawks history. You know, there's no doubt about that. He did only play here for 3 years. So did have himself a lot of receptions in there. 55 catches, 51 catches, 31 catches, but only 3 years, 13 touchdowns receiving in total. He was good. I don't think he was quite the blocker of Zach Miller. I definitely think he was more pass catcher than blocker, but he was a good player. Trey Flowers was brutal, Mick. Yeah, Trey Flowers was a tough watch. Oh my goodness, especially at the end. Allen Michael Bennett's definitely in my top 50. Dude wrecked havoc. He did. He got on there too. And he deserved to be in there. Absolutely deserved it. D would be on my bottom 50. That'd be my return to herbicide. D would be my returner. I might have to do a starting 22 and then my bottom 22. Like if Seahawks were stuck in hell starting 22. Daryl Taylor, he might have to be on there too. All right, let's see where the votes come in here. I ran a poll at the start of the day today, looking at who taking a look and seeing what you guys thought about bringing in Jaire Alexander. And let's see where we're at on the poll here. So we had 3 options placed that I put in the poll. Should the Seahawks sign or pursue Jaire Alexander? I had yes, no, and it has to be a deal. So it has to be where they're getting him in at a bargain prices, essentially. So 46% just said yes, they don't need it to be a bargain. They said, no, we're good. Just bring him in. 28% said you got to give me a bargain on the deal if I'm going to sign him. And then we've got, surprisingly here, 24% just say no. So almost 2/3 of the vote is either for yes or to sign a discounted deal, and only then or I guess even just 1/4 of the vote went to just straight no. Kind of surprising on that. I hadn't anticipated it was going to go that route with it. I thought we were going to get more no's on this one. So cool. People are in. There you go, John. People are in on Jaire. Make the call, buddy. Make it happen. David says, yes, the worst 22 would be awesome. I think I might have to do both. So playlist Travel gave us a great idea to do the starting 22. So maybe what I'll do is I'll do a starting 22 show, and I'll do a bottom 22 show, or we'll do them both at the same time on the same show, just for fun. I think that'd be pretty interesting. Could be funny. I don't like shading former players, but it's all in fun, right? It'll all be in fun. So, you know what I mean? Feed me more Seahawks. Thank you for a $1 donation, bro. You got yourself some crowns going on there. Thank you for that $1 donation. Didn't have any note put on in there, feed me. But I thank you for that. I do, brother. Appreciate you. All right. Well, we will start to put a bit of a button here on the show today. If you have a couple quick questions we can answer, I'll answer if you got it below on that. But otherwise, we'll go ahead and put a wrap up on this one. Coming back here in just a couple quick hours with Dan Viens of the Seahawks Forever podcast. So me and him are going to be chopping it up about this offseason, getting a little bit of both perspectives on where each of us are kind of sitting on the team, what we're looking to do. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about this Jaire Alexander situation, a little bit with it breaking today. So do please join me back here later on today. Tomorrow as well, we're coming in with 2 shows too. So we got the Abraham Lucas look at 12 o'clock. We're going to be taking a look at him. And then we're coming back here in the evening time at 6 o'clock with the NFC West Roundtable. And it's going to come from our channel here at the Hawks Nest. So all of the channels will be doing it from their own channels here. So be on the lookout for the NFC West Roundtable show. I'm going to get that out, pushed out here today. You'll get the notification for that show tomorrow. So a lot lined up this week. It may be the off season, but here at the Hawks Nest, we don't stop going. We just keep on cooking. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we're slowly starting to turn our way through the final parts of this offseason. One more OTA territory, and then it's training camp city here into July. So we are getting very, very close to the training camp start of your NFL season. We're almost there through this very long, arduous offseason, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this team play. Thank you guys for watching today. If you could for me, hit that like button. I would really, really, really appreciate it. It helps the channel out. As Feed Me says, we'll be back at 4:30 here with that Seahawks Forever podcast. So we'll be back very, very, very soon on that side of it. Last little note on it. We've been having a really good turnout. We've got just about enough tickets to lock this thing in fully, as we've been looking to do, which is we're doing a meetup. It's an NFC West Roundtable meetup here. It's going to be early October. It's going to be a Thursday night game in LA. In LA, not Seattle, but in LA. We're going to have all of us NFC West Roundtable folks there. We're going to be doing the night before at bar. We're going to be doing tailgame before the game. And if you click the link down in the description section below, the link will take you to be able to purchase tickets for the event, both the pre-night thing and then also to have tickets for the game itself. We're all going to be sitting together in the game together, watching the Rams and the Niners go at it, and not really just having any fighting interest in it, just knowing one of them's going to lose, and that part's good on that day. But I'm going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be a cool time. If you want to do that, get down to LA, check it out. Thursday night. It's going to be hard middle of the year, October, to get down there. But if you guys want to, come join me. I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be a lot of fun. We will be back here in just a couple of hours. Where are we at for wins and loss estimates? for the Hawks, I think there's a pretty wide variance this year where it stands, Kevin. I had us at 11 wins on the initial schedule release and looking at it, boom, 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 blow by blow. But I think that this team, as Vegas is showing with their 7.5 win allotment, I think that this is a team more different than many recent Seattle Seahawks teams where there's a much bigger variance than ever before. And that's both for maybe being down where Vegas is at, but also being up for where you potentially could have everything lock in and click into place and bam, you get yourself to 12 wins. So I think that variance exists on both ends of the scale there. It doesn't just end in the negative. Are there categories that Jaire is better than Ramsey? No. I would say that you could maybe say that he is better in zone situations slightly than Ramsey, whereas Ramsey's better than in man coverage situations. But then Ramsey is a significantly better tackler and run defender than Jaire is, I would say. Cover guys, though, overall, their bottom line is probably pretty similar, where Jaire is probably a good mark better than him in zone, and then Jalen a good mark better than him in man. So there's some kind of tit for tat there between the two of them. They're out deep, but then as a tacklers, I think Ramsey's just better. Some of it with Jaire when it comes to tackling is this is the problem with being an outside corner with shorter arms. We saw that Trey Brown struggled with this. When you got just those kind of 30-inch arms and you're trying to wrap up, you just don't have the means to get those hands all the way around the guy, and the tackles slip off a lot of the times when you just don't have it. And so that is a little bit of the issue there that does exist with Jaire. That is a little bit notable. That's for sure. Addicted, is there any negative about our 2025 defense compared to 2024? I think the offense is still a mystery, maybe. No, it's not even a little bit. Addicted, being that you're returning every single starter from last season. Is there a little bit of some depth issues and concerns with nose tackle and corners as it stands right now? Yeah, you have the means to still do some more at those positions, but they're not death knells and they're not worse than they were last year. If anything, they were worse last year. You also added talent on top of this defense from where it was at in 2024. DeMarcus Lawrence, Uchenna Nwosu was out pretty much all of last year. These two guys are brought into the fray. And then you've got Nick Emawari coming back in, or Nick Emawari just being brought in. That's going to be a big boon, I think, to this defense as well, just as, if anything, just as a weapon that you can use all over the place. So nothing but improvement is the expectation here from this defense. And the only way it doesn't improve, the only way it isn't better than last year, is if it gets hit with a significant amount of injuries. Absent that, I've got ultimate confidence that this defense will take another step forward this year, Addicted. 100%. 100%. How long are Spoon's arms? I think he's 31 and change. Look here. So Devin is 31 and 1/4 inch arms. Jaire Alexander's arms are 31 and 1/8. So just a little bit smaller than Devin's. Just like something like that. Something like that. All right, we'll be back here in just a couple of hours. Thank you guys for watching today. I really appreciate it. Got a load of shows locked in here for you this week, so I hope you ride with me here. Hit that like button. Maybe sub on up if you get the chance. I really, really do appreciate it. But no matter what, I really thank you guys for watching. And I hope you don't forget, I'll be back in a couple hours to remind you just in case, but your Seattle Seahawks are sitting on the precipice of finally being able to break through. You've been waiting 10 years. This team has been cracking along. This team is having to reset, rebuild, change out the coach, change their model and ways as they approach the draft. Well, now they have finally built it right, built it properly, built it slowly, but built it true. It is only a matter of time. I keep telling you guys that, but I believe it truly in my heart. Don't know if it'll be this year. There's a lot of potential for this year. You got the powder dry to go make some real active, high-octane moves. But this team is moving in the right direction. They're doing things smartly, and that just means to me it's only a matter of time. So don't you ever forget. Don't you do it. Go Hawks.